Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, thanks to an article a viewer threw my way, I'd like to discuss the way the right wing seem to have made Ed Miliband the politician they fear the most. Their public enemy number one, their bogeyman, their foot monster, which my wife insists is a thing. But how did one of the most lovable, and I'm afraid to say as a result, sort of ineffective political leaders of recent times end up being so feared by Conservatives? But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button so you stay notified. So I was sent an article on research into the way the UK newspapers had been featuring Ed Miliband in his role as the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, as well as a little bit before the election. It noted that in the first half of last year, that was leading up to the general election, there were 16 editorials attacking Miliband. Now, they're focusing on editorials because that is therefore the official view of the newspaper editors. Comment pieces are just that. They can often present views which contradict other comment pieces in the same newspaper, but editorials are more consistent. So 16 editorials attacking Miliband in the first half of 2024 and 45 in the second half, which is almost 3 times as many. It highlighted that the papers use very emotive language about him in order to, provoke a negative reaction, such as eco-zealot, madman, and hysterical eco-obsessive. I'll link the article in the description for you to read for yourself, rather than just parrot everything they discovered. But shall we say there is evidence of a concerted effort to turn the public against Miliband's efforts in government? And this, of course, is because he is not just the Secretary of State working on turning the UK away from fossil fuels, but because it's a brief he really believes in, with a long track record of commitment to the cause stretching right back to the last time Labour were in power. We know that there is a coordinated effort by pro-oil to disrupt our politics. Like, we often talk about Russian interference in our politics. We can see Elon Musk trying to have a material impact as well. He's not at all subtle. But those behind and promoting the fossil fuel industry have been arguably much worse. They've certainly been doing it for a lot longer. Like, it was known over 100 years ago that our excessive use of fossil fuels was rendering our environment uninhabitable by humans. Now, that surprises a lot of people who assume that the science must have only been certain of this more recently, because it's only more recently that damaging climate change has been sort of accepted in the media. Or, politically, broadly politically anyway, because there are still powerful political forces and media forces, including the US government now, who still deny it. But the reality is that the oil industry used a lot of money over a very long time to muddy the water on climate change research. They would pay for their own scientists to produce fake research, casting doubt on the concept. They never stood up to peer review, but people don't read scientific journals, they read newspapers. So when I was growing up, there was this view that the science on climate change was divided. It never was. It's just that the media presented that view. As always, they would present both views to the public, so the public think, oh, there's some doubt here, instead of just actually saying which is correct. Even now, when even the Conservatives accept that climate change is serious, they have to do that because there's a critical mass of the population now recognise it. The anti-net zero lobby are still pumping money into groups who are going to attack the science. Just this week, Nigel Farage and Liz Truss were teaming up again for the launch of yet another climate denial group. It's actually an American group setting up a UK branch. According to The Guardian, this group has compared those who try to warn about climate change to terrorists. So with Nigel Farage teaming up with the group and Labour pressing ahead with their worst nightmare, secure cleaner energy, and moving jobs away from oil and towards the green tech industry, we can probably expect the language employed in the so-called debate to turn much nastier. And we can expect Ed Miliband to bear the brunt of that rage, which will be very weird to observe. See, when Miliband was Labour leader, I always thought he would make a good prime minister, but because he was so ineffective as a political leader, it became clear after a couple of years he was not going to become prime minister. And yet, even then, the Tories feared him. Inadvertently, Ed Miliband did a lot of damage to the country, really. Failing to oppose austerity set in a chain of events which actually resulted in something worse than austerity being baked into our economy for a very long time. But you can't stay mad at him because he's so genuine, so humble, and he is trying so hard to make people's lives better, not just now, but in the future, not just here, but everywhere. And it's bizarre to think of the right wing treating this quite affable man as their worst nightmare. You look at Ed Miliband, it's like teddy bears are allowed to be politicians now, which unfortunately was part of the reason why he was so useless as party leader. But very good Secretary of State. He's like Henry VI, really. But I suppose the reason, certainly in the here and now, is that what Miliband is doing not only threatens the business model of the main funders of the right wing, but would be very difficult to reverse quickly. See, what Miliband is doing, really, it's like an anti-Brexit, something that will boost the security of the UK, but be very difficult to stuff back into the genie's bottle. Like if Labour are given the time and Miliband is able to finish what the last Labour government started and get almost all our energy from non-fossil fuels, and move a lot of jobs to green tech, not only will they be able to show the public how stable prices can be when you're not dependent on oil producing nations, who seem to take it in turns, disrupting the trade anyway with political instability, but they'll have weakened the influence of the oil industry in Britain because there won't be as many jobs dependent upon it, because that is the long-term goal here. As soon as there's not that many jobs dependent on it, and as soon as obviously our energy is not dependent on it, what hold do the oil industry have? You know, once the work is complete, the public aren't going to vote for a government that wants to take it away, because then it'll be taking away all these jobs and it'll be taking away their cheap, clean energy. You know, whatever Starmer, Reeves, Rayner, Lammy and the rest of the cabinet are doing, the Tories can reverse that pretty quickly when they return to power. What Miliband is doing, if it works, will be much more difficult to shift. And the fact that he is the target of so many attacks may indicate that those behind the attacks not only recognise this, but also believe he has the competence to carry out his task as well. They wouldn't be so worried if they thought he was going to arse it up. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.